I'm Adam Fletcher, and I am the co-author of Democracy Deficit Disorder. For the last 25 years, I've been working with K-12 schools, government agencies, and nonprofits across the United States and around the world, focus on youth engagement and this, how are young people becoming connected to the places that matter most to them. In this book, we address the issue of young people taking responsibility for the thing that most matters to them more than any other segment of our society, and that is democracy itself. We show how young people have been transforming the world with democracy and what it means for the future. And that's my take on democracy deficit disorder.
Good morning. I'm Cynthia McDermott. Good morning, Adam. How are you? I'm a retired faculty person from the University of Arizona and also from Antioch University. And my interest over these years of 50 plus working with teachers and kids is to help people take responsibility for what I think is the most important thing we have, which is our democracy. When Adam and I were working together, we decided that talking to folks, and particularly youth, about how we're responsible for the decisions that get made on a day-to-day basis and the actions that we can personally take to help democracy flourish, we decided to do this book, focusing so much on what youth can do and the power that youth have in making democracy move forward. And we certainly have indications of what youth did during this last presidential election. We're hoping to continue to talk about this to help young people understand that they can step up and make a difference.
So, democracy deficit disorder is the subtitle is Learning Democracy with Young People. And the story of the book basically comes down to this point that for more than 200 years, young people have been at the forefront of transforming American society and ensuring that democracy is at the center of what we're doing. Central drivers and agents of transformation throughout society, not just in upper middle class white society, but also among young people of color, low income people, the undereducated, the underemployed, and the disengaged, or what we've thought as disengagement for so long. What Cynthia and I ended up discovering in the course of writing this book is that young people, especially low income youth, especially young people of color, especially LGBTQ plus young people, especially young people from these identities that are marginalized and isolated from so much of the rest of society in general, and especially democracy as a function, they've actually been driving social change to ensure the democracy. This isn't an anomaly. This is actually a routine matter of practice that young people have been picking up on their own volition and working with adults as partners for decades and decades. So we really bring out that history and shine a light on it. But just as important as that, we bring it up to present and we show how young people are moving forward as the main drivers and as the main actors who are preserving our democracy, not just through politics, not just through political action, even though those are parts. We actually have stories of young people as young as elementary school who are fighting for libraries in their schools and to make sure that they have access to knowledge. Young people in middle schools who are fighting for internet freedom and to ensure that all young people have equal access to the internet and can use it on their own volition. Young people in high school who are leading entire communities and challenging the degradation that they face, the racism, the transphobia, the sexism, and all of these other elements that are so hard at work in our society to tear us apart. Young people are working to bring us together in these dynamic and powerful ways. And that's really what this book lays out. It shows how this trend of history and this reality of the present, why it's stifled and why we don't know more about it and talk more about it after having such a vivid and lively time in the 1960s and 70s with all the media paying attention to all the things that young people were doing to change the world and make a difference. Why has that gotten so quiet? Young people haven't gotten more quiet, but adults' responses, we have gotten more quiet and more silencing of young people themselves. And that looks like a couple different things. It looks like what I call the youth industrial complex, which is the phenomenon of nonprofits and government agencies and private business coalescing around a notion of young people as disabling, as young people as disengaged, with young people as the center of their activities who are subjected to the wills of adults. And with that subject, we see young people dismissed. We see young people discarded. We see young people forgotten about on a routine basis throughout our society, in schools, in healthcare, in public health, in governance, in social services, in recreation, in so many different ways. They're not discarded when it comes to marketing, though, because we put youth right at the front, right? Well, it's actually wrong. We put youth in token roles and we hold them up on pedestals as some kind of a idea that adults can aspire to, that we should be like youth. And to some extent, we should in our energy and attitudes. However, as adults, we have important functions in our society too. And one of those is to work with young people as partners. And that's what this book is about, is really bringing out these roles for young people as agents of change throughout our democracy and as the real.
So I think that Adam's point is really important. We have a view of youth that is not correct. And as adults, we need to be the allies. We need to be the supporters. We need to get out of the way. We need to take the role of, wow, look at what youth can do. Look at what youth are doing. And we need to support that instead of so much of what we hear, oh, Gen Zs do this and this person does this group does this and they don't have any worth and they're lazy. And it's time for us to recognize the amazing things that youth have been doing. One quick example is after the Parkland shooting, and this is something that most of us know about. Those young people became activists. They took on the role of fighting against gun use, and they're still doing it all these years later. They understood that it was important for them to have their voice. And there are lots of examples of that in the book, but the difference is that the people who recognize the strength and the skill of those young people have not gotten in the way. And maybe that's the best thing we can hope for, is for adults to get out of the way, even if they're not going to be allies. And so part of the purpose of the book is to help adults think about being that, to step away from their adultism and thinking that everybody has to be like them, and recognize that youth are very active and engaged and making a difference. And thank heavens for that. One of the reasons we call it the deficit disorder is because we're constantly looking at young people as having deficits. We label them. You know, we got the special ed kids and the needy kids and the this group and this kid, instead of looking at these young people as having personal power and finding ways to support that personal power. Because otherwise the deficit just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
And maybe that's the most powerful message of the whole book, Cynthia, is that we have places to go and things to do and practical, logical, real steps that each of us can take, whether we are concerned teachers, whether we are impassioned parents, whether we are dedicated youth workers, whether we're just a neighbor who cares. We all have things that we can do as adults. And if we're young people, we have even more that we can do. And the book gives a clear portrait of what that can look like and what that can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think, we've talked about doing the next book. How do we continue to take this voice out into the community to have people do even more, particularly right now, as many of us are concerned about what the next 4 years are going to look like.